and folk from North Carolina, far North Carolina. Where'd they go? Good to see y'all. Good to see new faces from North Carolina. And I think everybody's still here, except for the McNairs that had to go back to Maryland. And so tent comes down tonight. So these fellas they're wanting me to hurry up. They asked for a short one, is what somebody said. Did anybody really say that? The last night? Okay. Now, y'all, this is going to be, at least I'm going to try to say that it's going to be the simplest, most direct, new material for me, in the sense of it's not lessons that I pulled out and dusted off and y'all have to listen to. Some of these folks been with this tent and with the Martinsville congregation for over 20 years. So I need to say this for our brethren out of here. Can you imagine, and I'm saying I'm taking this very seriously, can you imagine going out to a 2-week event and listening to your preacher for 2 weeks? And Caleb, who grew up with you for 2 weeks? Just not going to happen. So y'all are to be commended, and I love and appreciate you. I can't imagine doing it myself. So, great big encouragement from them, and then from all the places. Did we end up having 7 states or 8 states? All total. 7, I think. I'm going to say 6. Somebody will say I always inflate. Everybody with you? Good to see you. We just started this portion. Okay. Could it be that the actual problem that we're having, and I'm saying, it just has really dawned on me lately, that it could be, as much as we talk about what does the Bible say, that we actually are looking for a way to create unity, the unity that God asked for, that his son prayed for. Let me start there. In his last prayer with his disciples, is it possible that there was basically something that we overlooked being a part of the problem? John 17:20. Now, when people pray, I'm saying when people are dying, they're our loved ones, let's say a brother or a father, and they're dying, and we're at their bedside, and they look like they're going to say something. Can you imagine that scene? Daddy's going to say something. Papa's going to say something. Grandpa's going to say something. Well, get over there. Well, I don't know if he's really... Well, get over there. You don't want to miss his last words. Isn't that what the way we would be? Somebody that you love, it doesn't have to be Papa. It doesn't have to be Grandpa. It doesn't have to be your dad. It could be a loved one. It could be a child. Heaven forbid that you have to hear your child's last utterance, but it would be important. And this is Jesus' prayer in the garden before he died. Neither pray I for these alone, and we know that there were only 11 people with him. Neither pray for I for these alone, but for them also which shall believe on me through their words. Man, is that important? Their words. So we're basically saying that their words are going to be what helps not just the apostles. Actually, it's going to be them helping us. All that will believe on me through their words, that they all may be one. And look at his description of one. As thou, Father, art in me, and I in thee, that they also may be one in us, that the world may believe that thou hast sent me. So if the devil was listening to that prayer, what would he zero in? What is the main subject of that prayer? Well, somebody might say, well, it's all those that will believe on me. Well, if that's the case, then what is the object that these individuals who believe on are actually going to be interested in, or what's going to be the key to keeping them unified. And then we even have the description of the unity as Jesus and his Father are. There's no doctrinal differences between Jesus and God. Well, what would the devil zero in on? Their word. If he can mess up their words, where are their words? Right here. If he can mess up their words, well, how do you mess it up? Well, you try to get some of it taken out, and there's a pretty big curse on that, isn't there? Taking out and adding to. So it would be those two things. Take some out. Well, who in the world takes things out? Well, some new translations actually skip Mark 16, 15, and 16. Well, why would they do that? What does Mark 16, 15, and 16 say? It's pretty important. It's probably one of the things that people argue about as much as anything that I know of. It certainly does separate a lot of people. Matter of fact, causes them to build buildings and get away from each other, depending on how you do this. He said, he said to them, go into all the world, preach the gospel to every creature. He that believeth and is baptized shall be saved. He that believeth not shall be damned. I'm not going to be baptized, so let's get rid of that one. Well, guess what? If you're reading whatever translation you might have tonight, this is the King James, by the way, you just look and see if there's a note, footnote, center reference, something that says. It could even say something like the oldest manuscripts or the best manuscripts don't contain Mark 16, 9 through the end of the chapter. Guess what? You're missing some pretty important stuff. Well, I ain't going to be baptized. I know that, and my Bible don't have that in there. Well, you're missing some very important stuff about Jesus' resurrection when you start cutting out back here in these early parts, the appearance of Jesus and things like that. I don't know that I want to leave that out, and I don't think that footnote's going to say that it leaves out the book of Revelation either. Same Bibles that leave that out, leave out the book of Revelation. You going to do without the book of Revelation? So, that's what I'm saying tonight. Now, here's the important, the danger here. We're going to get this first, and then we're going to go to work on what that addition or subtraction could be that changes their words, and we don't have unity now. Now, Revelation 2:5, remember therefore from whence thou art fallen, and repent and do the first works, or else I will come unto thee quickly and will remove thy candlestick out of his place, except thou repent. Now, one thing that the 7 churches of Asia did not want to hear is that their candlestick was removed. Now, I'm not a Jew, and you're not either, most likely, but maybe you do know what a menorah is, the candlestick, the candle with the 7 extensions that was inside of the tabernacle first, and then it was later inside of the temple. That's the candlestick, and he's basically been talking about this, and these candlesticks, these 7 that he's talking about, are the 7 churches in Asia. He basically just is calling them a candlestick because light is what the church is supposed to do. Something's going on here, and he's telling them, if you don't repent, we're going to we're going to remove your candlestick. Nobody would want that kind of thing to happen, would you? Even if you don't know exactly what it is, would you want to take a chance? We're talking about pretty serious things here. And so tonight, what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to simplify what he is actually talking about. Again, talking to the church at Ephesus. The letters in the New Testament are to different individuals like Timothy and Titus that worked with Paul, Philemon, individuals that were associated with him, and then to churches. And so this evening we're starting at the end of the book, the end of the Bible, and we're hearing John be told by an angel that the candlestick's going to be removed. Now, let's see what was going on in the New Testament days that would cause a letter like that to be written, cause a statement like that to be made, and also that God thought so important that we would come out on a hot June evening in 2020 when lots of people are not even going out at all, and here we are, We've had the tent up for 2 weeks. You got people from 6 or 7 different states to come all the way over here to hear this information, what was going on. Galatians 2:2. I went up by revelation and communicated unto them that gospel which I preached among the Gentiles, but privately to them which were of reputation, lest by any means I should run or had run in vain. Now, I can tell already that this is going to be a bit of a difficult lesson, because it's like you don't have a really good starting point, and you introduce something at the end, but I knew that, but I said, I'm going to do this anyway, because I think at the end of it, we will have presented information that will be like you're looking for a problem and you can't seem to find it, so you just keep eliminating, process of elimination, and it is a tedious job, but we're at the end. We're at the end of this 10 meeting, and we haven't basically figured out. Now, 4 people have figured it out. 4 different individuals have changed religions since we've been here. And so some of them been in a particular religion for 30 years plus and changed. And so I know that it's working, but we're wanting to be able to put some information out on the internet that will help even more. So what's going on back here? Then 14 years ago, Paul says in Galatians 2:1, what did I do? I went back to the first verse. 14 years ago, I went up again to Jerusalem with Barnabas and took Titus with me also. And I went up by revelation. All that means is he was told to go. Here's an inspired apostle. He's told to go, and communicated unto them that gospel which I preach among the Gentiles, but privately to them which were of reputation, lest by any means I should run or had run in vain. Now, but neither Titus, who was with me, being a Greek, was compelled to be circumcised, and that because of false brethren, unawares, brought in, who came in privily, I'm right here, privily to spy out our liberty, which we have in Christ Jesus, that they might bring us unto bondage, to whom we gave place by subjection, no, not for an hour, that the truth of the gospel might continue with you. You see that? Some individuals are trying to get Paul to actually change things, and he is saying, you know what? I went into these individuals who are of reputation first, privately, lest I would realize that I had run or should run or had run in vain. In other words, I want to find out what the high up folks are saying. Why? Because they're going to mess you up. And that's what's going on here in this town, in this county, in this area, is the high up folks, those of reputation. Now, what did Paul say about those individuals? Those persons of high reputation? And that because of false brethren unawares brought in, who came in privily to spy out our liberty, which we have in Christ Jesus, that they might bring us into bondage, to whom I gave place by subjection, no, not for an hour, that the truth of the gospel might continue with you. Look at them. But of these who seem to be somewhat, these people in reputation, they seem to be somewhat, whatsoever they are, it maketh no matter to me. God accepted no man's person, for they who seem to be somewhat in conference added nothing to me. What about that? Is it the case that we need more individuals who are not concerned about what the mayor says? We're not concerned about what the chief of police says. We're not concerned really with any dignitaries. Now you might say, well, Johnny, how come you're in North Carolina? Well, I didn't say that I didn't have good sense. I just said I'm not worried about them. I've got sense enough to move across the state line, so that the individuals who have in the past not been as friendly, even flat out shut our tent down for a day, we moved over here so that we wouldn't run in vain. You get it? We put the tent up, had to take it down. That would be doing in vain. So we're not concerned in the sense that, are they going to get upset when we go back across the line? Well, I don't know. Depends on how fast their car is. No, I'm not running from police. Not yet. Well, you see this? This is really simple. I'm saying this is This is your world. We all have to deal with these people in reputation, don't we? People that seem somewhat until they get voted out. This is what goes on in the religious realm too. We can't, do you know, y'all, that we can't go to the jails? That's terrible, isn't it, Howard? In Tennessee, Howard actually got put out of jail too. Well, boy, that's a treat. Well, he wasn't in jail for stealing or anything like that. He was in there teaching, and they threw him out. We can't even get in the jails to teach people because of a group called Sunlight in Henry County. They actually have all of the controls as far as the county jail is concerned, and they don't like me, so I can't go in and minister to prisoners. Well, why you want to minister to prisoners? Because I've been a prisoner and I know what it's like. I think I could identify, and then I think that I could teach them something. And so there we are. So what is it that Paul is doing? I see, I'm pretty sure you can see this. These individuals, were they adding something right here? These individuals that are in conference are of reputation. They're getting all excited because the Christians among the Gentiles are not being circumcised. And so they're checking on Paul. Did he say that they were false brethren, unawares brought in, who came in privily to spy out our liberty? Do y'all get what they're saying? How do you find out if somebody's circumcised? This is some pretty crazy stuff, isn't it? They're coming in privily, and if they find out you hadn't been circumcised, then they're going to try to compel you. And he said, I didn't compel Titus. Evidently, Titus is a Greek right there. He wasn't circumcised. And so they're trying to add to. Now, I'm going to go ahead and expose it right now. The word that is not in the Bible that we keep using, and I'm fixing to quit using it exclusively, I'm going to start calling it what it is with a hyphen so that everybody starts learning it. This is our reputation right here. We're trying to speak like the Bible speaks, and we're trying to do things in Bible ways. Okay? Speak like the Bible speaks and do things in Bible ways. Call things by Bible names and do things in Bible ways. And then, if you want to argue, who are you arguing with? We won't be arguing with each other, really. We'll be arguing with God if you don't want to do Bible things in Bible ways and call Bible things by Bible names. So what is the word? And it's one I have worn out, and I'm really tired of using it because I realize that it is actually an addition and folk are getting by with it. And the word is denomination. You know what? Denomination is a word for currency. Who in here does not understand the proper meaning for denomination, how to use it in a sentence? Well, when you get over to the bank and Che is your teller, and she says, you throw a $100 bill in there and said, Che, give me change. And she says, what denominations do you want? I'm not talking to you about religion up here in the bank. You don't think about your religion, do you? You talking about, I'm going to tip somebody, so I want a 5. Well, I don't tip that big, so give me ones. Ones is a denomination, or 1 is a dollar bill, 5 is a denomination of a dollar bill, 10 is a denomination of a dollar bill. Do we even pay attention to how we're actually using the word? Do we have the authority to do the church like that? Somebody said that you do. They basically say that the body of Christ can be divided up into different denominations. Now, y'all, I don't mean no harm, but if somebody says, call me something, and what they say to call them actually means something they didn't know about it, and I end up saying what it really means, don't hold me responsible. For instance, individuals might come back to me and say, well, Johnny, I know that you said that's a currency term, but the word Pentecost also is a number. It means 50. So basically, if I were to call a particular church that uses that word 50 cent, 50 church, if we're using currency terms here, are we not? Denominating the body of Christ. I want the body of Christ to have a 50 church. That's what Pentecost means. It's 50 days. It's the Hebrew word for 50 days. And so that's what we want to do, and we believe that God authorizes that. Does he? 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 27. Now you are the body of Christ and denominations in particular. No, the body of Christ is made up of members. There is no denomination in the Bible. So anyone who is doing that is saying, well, we can actually all denominate up into different groups. Is that a part of Jesus' prayer, their words? Father, I pray not only for these, but for all them that will believe on me through their word. Is denominate up into different groups in their word? No. Well, is it something that happens in the New Testament? Yes. Well, if it happens in the New Testament, why can't we use that word? Because we said we're going to do things in Bible ways, didn't we? Said we're going to call things by Bible names. So what did they do? Well, this is what they did. And this is what it was called. We actually see them doing that very thing right here. They are actually having a group of individuals who are rising up, and they're saying Titus needs to be circumcised. And Paul said, you know what? I don't care about your reputation, but I want to find out where you are privately so I know who I'm facing. Now, that's a pretty smart thing, isn't it? Get your enemies to all come out and let you see them. Let me talk to you in private, and it's not because I respect you more than anybody else, but I want to see what's going on here. And then he finds out that these false brethren had snuck in, and they know that Titus hasn't been circumcised, and so they're trying to compel him to do that, adding to their words. And the Gentiles are not circumcised. Okay, are we all good right there? Was that just dry when it first started, but you actually brought it all together, and we're looking at it. We're looking at these folk. Now, how do you feel about the folk that are bringing the circumcision in? Well, you might say, well, Johnny, folk in the Church of Christ, you may even know some that's had a baby. And the doctor came around, and you know the practice because this is what they do. They do this in Martinsville, and they do it in the Marshall Islands. Somebody will come around and say, do you want that baby circumcised? What would they say if you said, are you calling me a Jew? We don't say that, do we? Well, what are you talking about then? You're adding to the word too. Today, circumcision is not a religious rite. It's not a religious ceremony. Well, not in Protestant religion. I don't know about when you're in some other different religions that are outside of this world, outside of the United States, Eastern religions, whatever. But see what I'm saying? It's kind of like this is just something that ends up now being a medical preference. And that is what it is. But back here, it was adding to your religion. So we cleared that up, I think, and I don't think anybody would use that, I hope, as an argument. Okay, now, Galatians 5:3, we jumped because the book is all about this. What? Yeah, this is about getting in there and weeding out a particular group of individuals who are adding, and you see how it's done. Now, I am going to tell you this. I had a gentleman last night, his name was Bob, and I thought he was going to be here tonight. He's been here the last 2 nights, and he actually found out last night he could ask a question during the sermon. Now, I don't particularly want to answer a question while I'm actually doing the teaching, but hey, you're my guest. What would you say if we were at my house and I said, well, you can't talk till this is over? You probably wouldn't come back, or you'd probably leave. What kind of cult is he running here? So this will be the only place probably that you ever go to a religious service or a teaching situation where you can actually interrupt the teacher, the pastor. I'm not the pastor, I'm just Johnny. They're not going to let you talk. You start asking too many questions and you end up being asked to leave. Now, we don't have our microphone out tonight, do we? Oh boy, these fellas, even though it's the last night and they pack it up out there already, they still got their microphone out. So if a person wanted to ask a question that's not a member, everything's set to go. So I actually am answering some of the things that we discussed because he told me, I'm unaffiliated. I'm unchurched right now. He's good 60 years old plus. He said, I'm unaffiliated. And he said, that's a sin. And he said, I'm trying to find my way and figure out, I know where he goes to church, but I don't know what's going on with him. And it's probably Corona. He's probably tired of being at a particular religious group with one that won't let him come in and worship. So He migrated around here, and that's good. So Galatians 5:3, we're trying to weed this stuff out. For I testify again to every man that is circumcised, that he is a debtor to do the whole law. Look, Paul is basically making this clear. If you add one thing from the law, you got to add the whole thing, because it ends up messing up your practice. You can't just pick and choose. What? You can't pick and choose? People are doing it all the time. Where do you get a lot of the stuff that you do if it's not in their words? Well, most people, if it's not in the apostles' words, here's what they do. They start looking around for another lawgiver that people respect. And so they'll go, Moses did it. David did it. See what they're doing? They're looking for authority. They're actually trying to do similarly what we're doing. Do things in Bible ways and call things by Bible names. Well, that is Bible. Moses is in the Bible. David is in the Bible. But if you're going to do one part of Moses, don't you have to do all of it? I mean, you just get to do Moses that way? I pick and choose, and I kind of manage Moses, and he makes our religion work for us. What does that mean? Well, did you see that little body movement I did? It was what a lot of people are doing in church today. They're dancing, and they didn't get it from Moses. They got it from David, they say. David wasn't in worship. Whatever he was doing on the way, bringing the ark into Jerusalem, that's not, you can't just be picking stuff out like that and say, well, it said he was dancing. Well, it didn't say what kind of dance it was. And for all you know, if you studied Jew history, Hebrew history, you might just totally run into yourself and say, I don't want to do that. Anyway, you see what we're saying? They were adding things to it, and individuals are doing that. And if you do it, if you go back to David or you go back to Moses, you have to do all of it. So we actually had to send a fellow back to South Carolina. He came in, member of the church. He wanted to cook beef up under here. Now, you might say, well, that's ridiculous. Well, if you're going to go back to David for your music, I want to smell the beef. And we wouldn't let him cook beef up in here. It's not because we don't like the smell of beef, and it's not because we don't like beef. It's because we have a code, and we don't want to kicked out of North Carolina. We just barely got our 10 up. Passing code, and here he is wanting to cook up in here. You have the health department coming down on us. So you see what we're saying here, and you say, well, that makes sense. Well, does it make sense for a person to bring in a different kind of music and you're not going to bring in the beef? You see how this is going? And people accuse you of doing it. They say they pick and choose over there. I'm going to go to one that doesn't do that. Now look what he says. Christ is become of no effect unto you, whosoever you are. Whosoever of you are justified by the law, you are fallen from grace. What? If you add in things from the law, just a little bitty thing like circumcision, I'm saying, how big a thing is circumcision? Some individuals actually keep the circumcision. They actually keep the part that was circumcised, and they put it in their family Bible, or they could put it in a keepsake. It's just a little tiny thing. We're talking about an infant, 8 days old is what the law says. That's like a straining at a little old gnat, isn't it? Well, it'll get you falling from grace. And you know what that right there does? That actually destroys one of the tenets of one of the major, said I wasn't going to say it, didn't I? Well, what can I call them if I'm not going to talk about currency? We'll get to that. It's going to destroy one of the major blank. I'm not going to say, I'm not going to add anymore. I'm not going to use that. I'm not going to use that currency term. So there's one particular out there that doesn't believe you can fall from grace. So what? You actually disagree with Paul? You can't fall from grace? Well, you know what? If you can't fall from grace, it is no wonder they don't mind adding stuff to the Bible. What did we read? We read that your candlestick's going to be removed. That particular blank church, their candlestick's going to be removed if they don't repent. Well, if you can't fall from grace, how can you have your candlestick removed? So now there's no danger. Now, one particular group I'll name right now, Jehovah's Witnesses, don't believe there is any hell. So you think they mind adding to? Y'all, they added a whole Bible. They have their own version, the New World Translation. So if you don't believe in hell, then why would you be scared to add to God's word? Right? If your name gets taken out of the book of life, so what? You wasn't going to heaven anyway. So this is to me, this is extremely useful. Now look at verse 5. For we through the Spirit wait for the hope of righteousness by faith. For in Jesus Christ neither circumcision availeth anything, nor uncircumcision, but faith which worketh by love. Look at that. There's another tenet of the same blank church that we were talking about a while ago. They believe in that you cannot fall from grace, and they also say that you don't have to do anything in order to go to heaven. You just believe in Jesus. But what does Paul say? Well, circumcision doesn't count. It doesn't accomplish anything. Whew. Folk that didn't have their baby circumcised, man, y'all in good shape, aren't you? You thought we just about got you, didn't we? And if you realize that you had to be circumcised and your parents didn't, what does that mean? Grown-up circumcision. Boy, it's getting hot up under here, isn't it? Now, how old was Abraham when he was circumcised? Very old, and everybody in his house was circumcised. So, man, we have got it easy when you really get down to it. So, but faith which worketh by love. Now we got works and faith, and you can fall from grace. So we just spun that whole group around. You did run well. Who did hinder you that you should not obey the truth? Now, y'all, here we are running again. Are y'all tired? Out of breath? You're running over here in Galatians 2, lest I had run in vain. What you talking about? Well, if these guys with a big reputation, if I don't find out what they're doing, then I can't fight back. So I met them privately, found out that there were some spies that came in to spy out our liberty, and they know that we're not circumcising. So now he's fixing to have it out with them. And so he's not going to give in, not for an hour, he said. We didn't compel him, not for an hour, and I don't care about these individuals that are somewhat, whatever they may be, I don't care. Why? So that the truth of the gospel can continue with you. Okay, now we're at chapter 5, and there's only one chapter to go, and he's basically talking to them again about running. Who did hinder you that you should not obey the truth? Well, we know who, don't we? We know it's these people of reputation. It's these individuals that came in and spied out our liberty and adding words, just 2 words, or just 1 word, circumcised. See how that 1 word tore everything up that Jesus' apostle were trying to accomplish? So you're telling me that 1 word, circumcised? No, I'm not telling you that. I'm saying that's what was going on then, just 1 little old word that came out of a different code book, like the word denomination, currency terms. You brought it in, and you're using it for the body of Christ like it's proper. Okay. Now, who did hinder you that you should not obey the truth? So having circumcision, it's causing us not to obey the truth. Wow. But remember, we're not circumcising today as a religious activity. It's a medical event. All right, here we go. It's like, okay, he actually said people of reputation, but he's still asking in chapter 5 who it is. Who is involved in this activity that's causing you to run in vain, or you were running well, but somebody hindered you. Well, let's go back and dig just a little bit. In Galatians 2:13, and the other Jews dissembled. Y'all, that's a very important word. Dissembled. You know, when you assemble, you know what that means. We are assembled. But dissembled is the opposite. They're basically coming apart at the seams. The other Jews dissembled likewise with him, insomuch that Barnabas, that's Paul's co-worker, Barnabas also was carried away with their dissimulation. But when I saw that they walked not uprightly according to the truth of the gospel, something's been added. Remember the prayer. I'm praying not only for these, but all them that will believe on me through their words. Something's going on here. They walk not uprightly according to the truth of the gospel. I said unto Peter, seriously? Is there hardly anybody of more reputation than Peter? If Peter introduced it, you better back up, Paul. You're pretty much at the top, aren't you? Well, let's back up just a minute, and let's look at what we didn't see. This is Galatians 2. We're still going to stay in Galatians 2. Look at verse 10. That's a little bit further back. Verse 11, but when Peter was come to Antioch, I withstood him to the face, because he was to be blamed. Look at this. For before certain came from James, oh man, that's Jesus' brother. Now you done got the family in it, and you got the Jewish apostles. One of the Jewish apostles, the closest, like the in crowd. Jesus' inner circle, Peter, James, and John. And this is not that James. That James died in Acts chapter 12. So this is James, the brother of Jesus. So Peter comes down to Antioch. I have to tell you, you have to realize there's two Antiochs in the New Testament. There's an Antioch that's just outside of Palestine, and it's in Syria. We still have Syria, serious trouble with Syria all the time. There's an Antioch there, and there's another one in Asia Minor called Antioch of Pisidia. This is Antioch of Pisidia. It's over by Philippi, out that way, Galatia, okay? When Peter came to Antioch, I withstood him to the face because he was to be blamed, for before that certain came from James, he did eat with the Gentiles. But when they were come, he withdrew and separated himself, fearing them which were of the circumcision. Man, we just identified it, didn't we? I can definitely see why they were hindered. I can see how the running has come to a crawl. James, the brother of Jesus, in council in Jerusalem. Paul's already been in that council once in Acts 15. James, Peter. Now James is not there, but Peter came from James. And Peter is not eating with the Gentiles. You know what that'd be like? That'd be like me being all friendly with you folk from Virginia, and my Texas family comes up, and I'm just like, man, these folk from Virginia, have you heard their accent? Well, we got an accent in Texas too. When I first got here, every time we go up to a drive-through and we'd say, I'd like a cup of ice, they'd ask us to say it again. Cup of what? Ice. I don't know what's wrong with the way we say ice. When I was in Memphis, they always wanted it, the guys that weren't from Memphis, were other states, they wanted to say night. I said, what's wrong with the way I say night? Oh, I just did it like y'all. What's wrong with the way I say night? And I don't know what it was, but they sure did like to hear us say night. See what that would be like if we were making fun of each other, or we culturally started separating because we didn't like, what if we're doing it on race? What if we're doing it on country? We do that, don't we? People from Latin America? People from Latin America come over here getting our jobs. See how that goes? We can't do that if we're Christians. Isn't that right? See how that would be if we wanted to start being like that? So we're seeing this. Now, it's Peter, and Paul is saying, look, we're not going to have the truth of the gospel if I don't withstand him. I said unto Peter before them all, if thou, being a Jew, livest after the manner of the Gentiles, which means before before James got involved, Peter was eating with the Gentiles, and Barnabas was eating with the Gentiles. And now you're saying that you have been living after the manner of Gentiles and not as do the Jews. Why compel us? You hear that? They were trying to compel Titus to be circumcised. Why compellest thou the Gentiles to live as a Jew? We who are Jews by nature and not sinners of the Gentiles. That's basically a tongue-in-cheek statement. Paul is basically saying that's the way you're acting, Peter. Sinners of the Gentiles. Well, we can't eat with them anymore. Now we see how this worked. Now you might be saying, well, that hadn't brought us any closer. Yes, it has. You just don't see it yet. We're fixing to see it, like we're going to seeing this new word and getting rid of the old one. But when I saw that they walk not uprightly according to the truth of the gospel, what's the truth of the gospel going to do? What was Jesus' prayer? All them that believe on me through their words, they have the truth of the gospel. Now, any addition is going to create dissimulation. On Sunday morning, the churches are all segregated again, are they not? Sunday is the most segregated day when we talk about race. When we talk about unity, it's the most ununified day every week. Everybody goes to their particular religious assembly, and they are so glad that they're not with others. They pay good money for this brick and mortar, and we got one of these high-powered pastors. Well, he was high-powered till Corona came, and he shut the church down. Got scared of a virus that probably, I don't know anybody and I may have a small circle, but I don't know anybody that was sick. I had to be told somebody was somebody's family member. Don't you know that? That person, their family member, whatever. They have to stretch it out because we don't know anybody. Actually, Kathy, you're the only person that I know that had somebody that was actually immediately in your family sick. And I had to stop saying that, and I just realized that. Kathy's from Florida by way of Colorado. Isn't that right? So, all right, we got that? We were talking about the high-powered pastor? All right, now we're going to give another warning. Our first warning was your candlestick. You might say, I don't have a candlestick, and I don't even know what that meant anyway. It's in the book of Revelation. Well, here's your second warning, Galatians 5:12. Now, y'all, we're right where we were a minute ago when they were running. Remember? Who did hinder you? You were running. Well, then in verse 12, he says, I would they were even cut off which trouble you. Y'all, you want to see the terminology that the Bible uses? I'm looking for little children. Probably not going to understand it. Wait a minute, I got to go there first. Galatians chapter 5, verse 12. You think religion is not serious? You think Paul wasn't serious? We move to the original language, and there's your word for cut off. Boy, that's a mouthful, isn't it? Look what it means. We have this handy Strong's dictionary. Oh, you people of the Church of Christ, y'all bring out your own people. Strong's is not a member of the Church of Christ. James Strong. From 575 and 2875, it's a compound word. To amputate reflexively or by irony, to mutilate, parentheses, the private parts, to cut off. Are we serious yet? Paul seriously just said that? Well, John was told by the angel in Revelation 2:5, you are going to lose your candlestick representation. You're not even going to be a church anymore. And now Paul is upping it a notch in the way we talk. I would that they were even cut off. And it is used for dead in the Old Testament as well, in Hebrew. So, y'all, some people say, Johnny is pretty hard on them blanks. Remember I said I wasn't going to use that word anymore. If I do, I'm going to hyphenate it. In other words, I'm going to call it what it is while people are calling it what it ain't. He sure is hard on them. I'm not as hard as Paul was, am I? Talking about cutting them off. Now, because they're troubling you and they're actually causing the truth of the gospel to be diminished. Well, get with it, Johnny. What is it? Okay, here it is. In another church. You mean to tell me this stuff is going on in all the churches? Well, it's going on in 7 churches in Asia, and that's way close to the end. Only John pretty much is alive at this point. The other apostles have already perished. John ends up being an aged individual and writes 1st, 2nd, 3rd John and the book of Revelation, or the Revelation. But while Paul was still alive, look at this, in Corinth. 1 Corinthians 11:17. Now, this is going to be important. Everybody knows that communion is important. And people are fighting everywhere about communion. How did people do communion? Now, y'all, everybody that's visited need to know, we were doing communion the same way. People that we know out of here were in their car doing communion. I bet you when the churches come back open, you pull up in your air conditioner and you say, I don't like the praise team here at our church. I'm going to listen to your favorite Christian rock band, and you're going to sit out in the car with your air conditioner, and you don't like half of the people in there anyway, so you go sit in your car, listen to your Christian praise rock group, your favorite one, got your air conditioner right on you so you can actually dial the heat or the coolness any way you want to, and you're going to text the folk that are doing the communion. How about you bring that on out of here into the parking lot? What the pastor going to say? You tell him to get in here because we're going to be giving in just a minute, because he's probably going to take the communion and leave before the collection comes around. They don't let you get away with that. But while the corona was here, I'm saying that's what was going on. And that's what went on all over the place. Or they let you sit at home and you did virtual and you took your communion right there at home. Well, when the churches open back up, what you going to do? Going to ring them up and say, you know what, I think we're going to stay home today. What does the pastor say when you did that before? You really would call the pastor up and say, I think I'm going to stay home today? And how about y'all turn that stream on and let us watch it? It's ridiculous, isn't it? So I'm saying this is your passage right here. If you didn't like the church closing down, this is it. This is yours right here. This will open it back up. Now, in this that I declare unto you, I praise you not that you come together not for the better, but for the worse. For first of all, when you come together in the church, I hear that there be divisions among you, and I partly believe it. We're in the right place, aren't we? So now it was dissimulation over there in Galatia, and it's called division here. Same thing. Division. Division comes first, and then you start actually having something else happen next. Well, what is it, Johnny? Good night, they say. What is it? 1 Corinthians 11:19, here it is. Man, you would pick out one of the most unused words in the English language. Well, I can tell tonight that you're not a Catholic if you don't know this word, because Catholics been using it for years. They'll cut your tongue out if you're a heretic. Now, I know it's not used very much because a guy actually bought airtime on WGSR to answer us, and Charles gave him a commercial where he came on the buzz and got to talk about us, and Charles said, well, are you going to let Johnny call in? He said, I'm going to let him call in. He's a heretic. Charles said, what? What's a heretic? Here it is. And this is basically the name that should be used when we talk about currency, dividing up the body of Christ. Denominating it should be called creating heresy. Now, is that coming back to you now? I know you've seen movies about heresy. If you saw the William Wallace movie where they pulled him apart just about, wanted him to go ahead and confess, and he yelled out freedom, wouldn't do it. Remember that? Chill bumps, old man crying, all that. Heresy. They were trying to get rid of the heretics. For there must also be heresies among you, that they which are approved may be made manifest among you. Now, I know that given the scarceness of this word, we have got to have some help here. You're not going to leave out from under this tent saying, you know what? The Bible says don't add to the word of God. Jesus' last prayer was that unity would come if people would stick with the apostles' words. But I don't want to use this word heresy. Well, I'll tell you this, if you're with us tonight, I guarantee you will start listening for it and you'll start hearing it on TV, because it is a very common word, especially in old movies. And it's a common word when you're watching a movie that has to do with religious wars, any kind of thing like that. Heresies. Now, let's find out what it is, because it is causing division, and Paul said you might as well stay at home. You're not even coming together for good. If there's division, and I know there is, I hear that there is division, and I partly believe it. Well, you need to have a heresy. Now, wait a minute, Johnny. You said that heresy wasn't a good thing. Well, y'all, some words are actually good and bad at the same time. Man, I know you're watching now. Good and bad at the same time? Well, let me give you one. Anybody think it's okay to covet? Let me tell you, you can covet. Well, I know there's a movie out there. I have not seen it without a filter. And pretty much when you put a filter on it, you don't have anything about 20 minutes because they cuss so much. It cuts almost all of it out. It's called The Wolf of Wall Street, I believe. And the star says that covetousness is good. Well, he's a banker. Well, Johnny Robertson said covetousness is good. Listen, Johnny ain't saying nothing. We're reading. You want to hear where it actually says covet is good? It depends on how you use a word. 1 Timothy 3:1. This is a true saying. If a man desire the office of a bishop, where's covet? Well, it is the same word that is translated covet in other places. If a man desire, stretch out, reach out. You see it over there to the side? Is it too small, y'all? Let's make it big. We have the program. All it is a click. Just hang on. It's a prolonged form of an obsolete primary compared to 37:35. To stretch oneself, reach out, long for, covet after, desire. It's the good form of a bad word most of the time. Covet. If you covet the office of a bishop, he desireth a good work. So, we just saw that a word that is used in a bad connotation can actually be used in a good connotation. Now, y'all, if we're fixing to make some headway, we can hang on a bit, can't we? This is headway. We're actually calling Bible things by Bible names. So dividing up is heresy. I don't know if I like that. I'll tell you what, if you attend another kind of church on Sunday, go ask the pastor what he thinks about heresy and heretics. Watch this. Acts 24:14. This is helping us with the word. In Acts 24:14, Paul says, on trial, the Jews have him on trial in front of the Romans. But this I confess unto thee, that after the way which they call heresy, so worship I God, the God of my fathers, believing in all things which are written in the law and in the prophets. Okay, Paul said, they call it heresy, and I own up to it. I worship that way. They want to call it heresy, that's okay. Because later on, or previously, Paul wrote a letter to the Corinthians and says sometimes there needs to be heresy. Sometimes there needs to be dividing up. Why? So that those that are approved can be made manifest from the division causers. And you might say, well, wait a minute. What's going on back there? What's going on in Corinth? Y'all, this is some pretty bad stuff. This is stuff that actually could get a hold of us at any moment and may already be a clique or something like that in the church you go. When you come together, therefore, into one place, this is not to eat the Lord's Supper. Wait a minute, we weren't come together to eat the Lord's Supper. And you're telling us that this is not the Lord's Supper? I am telling you that, Paul said. For in eating, everyone taketh before his own supper, and one is hungry, and one is drunken. What have you not houses to eat in and drink in, or despise you the church of God, and shame them which have not? You know why some people don't come to church? Because of the clothes that other people wear. They don't have the same kind of economic standing, and their car may not be as nice, and their house and their clothes, and people make them feel bad when they come to church, because people come to church a lot of times to show out. Look at my new dress. Look at my new clothes. And you say, well, you're dressed pretty nice. Well, I traded Caleb out of this jacket, so it's a hand-me-down. I don't know how it is we're working like that, but somehow or other I'm fitting into his clothes now. So these boots are about 15 or plus years old. My boot manly, when folks that you surround yourself with, you know, our support group, we all got them. We may share the same doctors and whatever. When folks start dying, it gets pretty hard to function, doesn't it? My boot man died. I don't know what I'm going to do when I'm not able to resole my boots. So here we are, and this is what goes on, isn't it? Some people, the haves, make the have-nots feel self-conscious. And basically that's what's happened at the Lord's Supper. They have turned the Lord's Supper into an all-out meal, and they have shamed those that don't have. Some individuals able to bring steak up in here, and all I got's a hot dog. And you might be okay with that if you're grown, but your kids won't be. Mama, I want some of what they got. Well, baby, we don't have any of that. We got hot dogs today. I should change it around because most kids want hot dogs. So, but you get the point, don't you? That's what they're doing to the church. And Paul said, in this case, there needs to be a division, a heresy. I'm sorry. There needs to be a heresy. They already got divisions going on, the haves and the have-not. You need to have a full-out, well, wait a minute. We hadn't really defined this, have we? I'm going the wrong way. We haven't defined this, have we? Well, Paul said, I am owning up to it. They call it heresy. This is the way I worship. Well, what did they really call it? Well, here's the lawyer. Paul's on trial, and he's making his confession. What did the lawyer actually say he did? The lawyer said, this is the Jews' lawyer, for we have found this man a pestilent fellow, and a mover of sedition among all the Jews throughout the world, and a ringleader of the sect of the Nazarenes. There's my word. Here's your sign. I'm going to start calling denominations sects / denominations, because that's what they are. They are a sect within Christianity, as they say. This is what the Bible calls it. When you start dividing up the religious arena, or the religious whole, the body of Christ, and you divide it up, you're actually turning each part into a sect. It's heresy, and individuals who do it individually are heretics. Now, that's not really that hard, is it? That's about as simple as it gets. He's a pest, he's a mover of sedition, and he's created a new sect. And you're saying, a new sect? I didn't know there was old sects. Yes, you did. You just forgot. Who in here has never heard of Pharisee and Sadducee? Everybody's heard of Pharisees and Sadducees. It's because, and the way I know that is because that's what people do when they get mad at you. If you're narrow-minded, this is what they say, you're narrow-minded and rigid, they call you just a Pharisee. Isn't that right? They don't know what Sadducee means, so they just leave it alone. Sadducees is just people who don't believe in the resurrection. Sadducees and Pharisees, and look what it says, Acts chapter 5, and watch what they do. This is how they behave. Then the high priest rose up, and all they that were with him, which is the sect of the Sadducees, and were filled with indignation. They're mad at the apostles. Acts 15:5, but there rose up a certain sect of the Pharisees, which believed, saying, it's needful to circumcise them and to command them to keep the law of Moses. See, that's how it happens. You got a peaceful thing going on, and somebody rises up, and they add something to, and it creates division, and you end up having a sect over here named the Baptists, a sect over here named the Methodists, a sect over here named the Catholicism, a sect over here that's called the Wesleyans. That's the Wesleyans and the Methodists actually dividing themselves up into two different sects. That's the Jews dividing up into two different sects. There's some that's Pharisees, there's some that's Sadducees. See how that goes? And Paul is basically saying, when we do this, we impede our progress. You were running. I'm tired of running. You were running. You were doing well. Who hindered you? We know who hindered you, the big shots. Why would they do that? Ego. Don't you think? Isn't that what these pastors, it seems like? They got to have Bentleys. They got to have Rolls Royces. They got to have just the finest automobile. They have to have Reverend attached to themselves. Reverend. Seriously? You can't get along. Does your wife call you Reverend too? I'm saying pastors, when they're at home, does their wife call them Reverend, reckon? Or do they get to say their first name? It just incenses these pastors when I won't call them Reverend, and I actually say, I'm just Johnny. One of them told me, the only reason you say you're just Johnny is so you don't have to call us by the name we want to be called. Listen, my mama named me Johnny. That's why I'm called Johnny. That's pretty simple. You talk about my mama now. See how this stuff gets? It just is ridiculous when we start giving place to their egos. Titus 3:10. Paul did not give place to the heretics, not for an hour. Why? That the truth of the gospel might continue. That's what Jesus prayed for. You let the heretics come in and add and take away, and you impede the progress of the gospel. What is the progress of the gospel? The progress of the gospel is not having Danville, Virginia be known as the city of churches and have the most violent crime within probably 100 miles or however far Richmond is from here. Per capita, we have more violent crime than Greensboro does. Man, Greensboro is a big town, and we've got more violent crime. Guess what? Anybody get violent with y'all in the last 2 weeks? We've been all over this town, I don't know how many times. 2006-5, we've knocked 14,000 doors. How many doors in Danville? 14,000 and some change. Been everywhere in this town multiple times. And when the trash truck goes by, the dudes on the back of the truck, they see me knocking doors, you know what they say? What does the Bible say? Double dipping. What are they talking about? Oh, they getting it, y'all. When the pastor's wife becomes a pastor, they getting 2 salaries. That's called double dipping. And they got it. Especially the guys that are on the street. They know a game when they see one. They know a heretic when they see one too. They might not know the word, but they got this stuff down. A heretic, after the first and the second admonition, what do? Reject. No space. Why? You're impeding the progress. Now, is this not simple? Well, let's see it in action. This is exactly how it happens, and this is exactly how it is right now, everywhere that we are broadcasting to. Everybody that's listening is going to know this. For it hath been declared unto me, this is chapter 1. It declared unto me by of you, my brethren, by them which are of the house of Chloe, that there are contentions among you. Now this I say, that every one of you saith, I am of Paul, I am of Apollos, I am of Cephas, and I of Christ. Is Christ divided? Was Paul crucified for you? Or were you baptized in the name of Paul? You know, the amazing thing to me is John didn't get in this lineup. John who? Well, John that's got the biggest sect in the United States. What are you talking about? John the Baptist. John didn't make the list. Look at that. Wasn't nobody saying, I'm John. I'm a Baptist. They were basically all saying, they were lining up and dividing over names. Lutheran, that's a man's name. Martin Luther. Wesley, that's a man's name. John Wesley. See how this goes? People divide up over names. They put St. Luke up in front of it and make it more biblical, and it ends up being a Catholic church or something of that nature. This is exactly how heresy looks. When you name the division, the party that you've created, you name it after something that is biblical. Look what Paul says. 1 Corinthians 4:6. And these things, brethren, I have in a figure transferred from myself and to Apollos for your sakes. What these things? You can't just jump into a book and say these things and it's like, what are we talking about, these things? Are we fixing to get gifts? What's these things? Back up. For you are yet carnal, for whereas there is among you envying, strife, and division, are you not carnal and walk as men? Now here is these things. For while one saith, I am of Paul, and another Apollos, are you not carnal? Who then is Paul, and who is Apollos, but ministers by whom you believe, even as the Lord gave to every man? I have planted, Apollos watered, but God gave the increase. Now let's go back. There's your figure. Look at that. These are figures. Paul is just a farmer. He's a planter. And what is Apollos? He's a farmer. He waters. There's your figure. Now let's go back. These things, brethren, I have in a figure transferred to myself, Paul, and to my brother over here, Apollos, for your sakes. What for? That you might learn in us not to think of men above that which is written, that not one of you be puffed up against the other. Now you might say, no, wait a minute. I don't believe that actually can happen. Paul is a pretty high up, credentialed individual, isn't he? He's just withstood Peter. Sounds like he's headed up the ladder himself. Well, really, he's not. He's headed out to foreign fields. But look at this. You want to see how Paul really is and how Apollos really is? These Jews are coming in trying to get circumcision in, and they're telling people that Apollos and Paul are having trouble. But look at this. This is 1 Corinthians 16, verse 12. As touching our brother Apollos, look at this. I greatly desired him to come unto you with the brethren. But his will was not at all to come at this time. But he will come when he gets good and ready. How about that? That's the relationship that Apollos had with Paul. And these folks are trying to act like, well, Paul has his church, and Peter has his, and Apollos has his, and Peter is Cephas, he has his. Not. Do you believe, had you ever seen that before? You probably thought that an apostle had all authority. No. The apostle had authority when he did things by revelation. We started this lesson in Acts with him saying, I went up in Galatians 2 by revelation. He got a prophetic statement, or he got a vision that he was supposed to do that, and he went up, stopped his work, and went up there to deal with the division. Ended up realizing that folks were adding to, and you end up saying, you did run well. Somebody hindered you. I got to figure this thing out. Did we figure it out? The Jews that do not believe. That's basically where we are tonight, and this is like we're taking just a snapshot of what we look like if we do this. If we continue this sectarian behavior, heresy, adding to, creating divisions in the body of Christ, and using a currency term that the Bible never intended to be inserted, everybody loves it. Well, that's nothing new. We generally do what we want to do, don't we? But in religion, God is in charge. Jesus is king. So we go back and we see these are the Jews, for we have found this man a pestilent fellow, and he is a sect. They're telling their Roman captors, we've come to you, you're really in charge. We brought this guy, we got our lawyer, Tertullius, and we want you to know this dude has done created another sect. Man, you Jews are some litigious individuals, just all time bickering and wanting to bring things to legal status. And now you got another sect. We had it with your sects. You got Pharisees and Sadducees, and the Sadducees are the high priests, and they're fighting with the Pharisees. It's just ridiculous. And now you got another one, that Nazarene. We killed that dude. What are y'all talking about, the sect of the Nazarenes? He's dead. Y'all brought him to us and we crucified him. No, this dude Paul says he's alive. And even though we call it a sect, he said, and a heresy, he says this is the way he worshiped God. He confessed, didn't he? I confess. I'm following Jesus, the Nazarene. Well, what's going to happen? All I want you to see is when you do that, when you create sects. Now, he said what they call a sect. He didn't say he was really in a sect. He said, I worship God this way. They call it a sect, but it is the true way to worship. That's what we're saying. The Church of Christ is what you read about in the Bible. What you don't read about is denominationalism, sectarianism, dividing up what Christ intended to be together so we can actually have progress fighting the devil together. That's why we're having trouble in the United States, is pretty much religion has gone out the window. Folk look at all this confusion, they're like, these fellas sitting on the front row, they don't even believe in God. They're here from Massachusetts. What in the world you came all this distance for? You don't believe God? The grandma made them. Bless her heart. Y'all looking a little bit better too. I don't mean anything by that. They just look happier. Sean's even got a smile on his face. It went away. Okay. All right. Nobody's making fun. They like you, Sean. Everybody here likes you. And Anthony, we like you a little bit. No, we like you a lot. Y'all, these people came all the way up here to visit Virginia and North Carolina. Man, some of them are staying long enough for our party, too. From Maryland. I keep forgetting that other state. Did you count that state? Maryland. Okay. Sect of the Nazarenes. He is not in a sect. This is the true church. Jews that do believe. Now, those are the Jews that don't believe. They accusing Paul of creating a sect and causing division. Here's a Jew that does believe. Now, this is what you need to be. Let's take notice here. This is what you need to be. He's getting it. King Agrippa, believest thou the prophets? I know thou believest. Then Agrippa said unto Paul, almost thou persuadest me to be a Christian. Look at the progress that they have made. You got the Jews still over here, they're just bitter. It's a sect of the Nazarenes. We can't kill this dude. We can't get rid of his followers. You bring him up on charges, and what happens? The king, Agrippa, who is a Jew, actually tells Festus, the Roman governor, almost thou, in the presence of the Roman governor, in his presence, he said, almost thou persuadest me to be a Christian. See, he's not even using the sectarian name. He is actually honoring Christ by saying, Paul is a Christian. And that's what Paul is. He is a Christian. If you're calling things by Bible names and doing things in Bible ways, you'll only be a Christian. You won't have to hyphenate yourself. Well, what kind of Christian are you? It happens every time. A guy came in here last night. He wouldn't even tell me what kind of Christian he was. He could have stopped the whole thing and said, I'm only a Christian. And I would have said, well, if you're only a Christian, why don't you tell the pastor to take that sign down that says Baptist? Because I know he's a Baptist. You're only a Christian, but you got a sign up that says, this is Jesus' cousin's church. See how this works, y'all? And the world can see it. The people who don't believe in God. Y'all are okay, fellas. If you don't believe in God, anybody that doesn't believe in God, you're not the only ones. It's okay. Because what's being offered up to you is sectarianism, heresy, heretics. It isn't the Bible. This is the Bible. This is God's unity prescription. This is what we're actually here for. Now, Paul, as a Christian, should be freed. when you get the right name and you get in front of the individuals who are believers, look what happens. This is what was said after the trial. And when he had thus spoken, the king rose up, and the governor, and Bernice, and they that sat with him, and when they were gone aside, they talked between themselves, saying, This man does nothing worthy of death or of bonds. Then said Agrippa unto Festus, This man might have been set at liberty if he had not appealed unto Caesar. You know what? Y'all, I am friends with people in just about every church in this 2-county area. Somebody in those churches either knows me, knows one of my family members, and or knows somebody in Martinsville or Danville Church of Christ. And they tell us what the pastors say. You know what the pastors say? The pastors say a lot of what they're saying is the truth. Which part of it's not the truth? That's what I wish they'd come up with. Which part's not the truth? Well, the part they're talking about is the part they've added. Denominations, they don't want to get that actually in the truth, that it's not true, then they would have to stop. But a lot of what we say is true, and they know it is. So this is basically what's said behind the scenes. Jews who don't know anything. Now, we looked at the Jews who don't believe. It's just a sect. Y'all, people tell me, y'all just a denomination too. No. There is such a thing as being the true church. Now, we might not be, you might say. We may be doing something that messes us up, and we don't realize it. But I'll tell you this, we're trying hard, doing Bible things the Bible ways, calling Bible things by Bible names. Can you go wrong there? Well, maybe you find, get your spyglass out. That's what we're asking you. Magnifying glass. Look at us, investigate us, and see where we're going wrong. And I'm going to see if these fellows will talk to me. Have we been acting better towards Mike than you thought we were when we started? Oh, now you know. Are we treating Mike better than y'all thought we were going to treat him? Yes, sir. He got his own hotel room. How about that? Anthony, if we put you in your own hotel room, will we say you're treating you nice? Well then, got a little bit of smile out of him. See, we didn't have any harm for you, did we, Mike? Having Bible studies with you, letting you up in all of our personal space. We like Mike. See how that goes? Came in here from Massachusetts, we had a big fuss. Worked it around, we were actually speaking terms. We found out we love Mike, and he's found out we're good people too. How about that? All right. Jews who don't know anything. You might be here tonight and you don't know anything about really what we're talking about. Well, they're in here too. Acts 28:17 through 22, the end of the book of Acts. But we desire to hear of thee what thou thinkest as far as concerning this sect. We know that everywhere it is spoken against. Man, I have got to at least give you the context for this before we go. Acts chapter 28, verse 7. There's got to be something in there, because that kind of feels like us. Everybody talks trash about the Church of Christ. Well, maybe y'all are a sect. No, look at this. In the same quarters were possessions of the chief, 28:17, excuse me. And it came to pass that after 3 days, Paul called the chief of the Jews together, and when they were come together, he said unto them, They're in Rome, Men and brethren, though I have committed nothing against the people or the customs of our fathers, yet was I delivered prisoner from Jerusalem into the hands of the Romans. And the Romans said he should be let go. Who then when they had examined me, would have let me go, because there was no fault, because there was no cause of death in me. No cause of death in me. But when the Jews spake against it, I was constrained to appeal unto Caesar, not that I had aught to accuse my nation of. For this cause, therefore, have I called for you to see you and speak with you, because that for the hope of Israel I am bound with this chain. And they said unto him, We neither received letters out of Judea concerning thee, neither any of the brethren that came showed or spake any harm of thee, but we desire to hear of thee what thou thinkest, for as concerning this sect, we know that everywhere it is spoken against. So there we have just about everybody in the crowd. The people who don't know about it that are Jews, the people who do know about it that are Jews, the people that believe the prophets that are Jews, and the Romans. Everybody's together. And the Romans are hearing the King Agrippa, who does know the prophets' words. He is a scholar. You know the prophets. Do you believe them? I know you believe. And he said, almost thou persuadest me to be a Christian. Now tonight, that's what my job was. You might say, you know, I'll hear you again. That's what Festus' predecessor said. He said, I'll hear you again. And he actually thought Paul would give him money, and so he invited Paul in again. This evening, this is our last night, and this is the kind of thing that we do on a regular basis. This fellow right here was a Catholic when he came from Massachusetts. Guess what he is now? Christian. How about that? The stuff works. He's 18 years old, can vote, old enough to go to the Army. Made a switch. Why? If you don't add anything to it, then guess what? It becomes the answer to Jesus' prayer. That's the most powerful prayer that can be prayed, Jesus' prayer. Neither pray I for these alone, but for all them, that's all of us, that will believe on me through their word. Why aren't we together? Somebody added something to their word. And when you take it out, you make a Christian out of a Catholic. Now, isn't that something? I know individuals here can appreciate that. People in all nations, when Paul writes this letter, there's every kind of person in the church in Rome. Salute one another with a holy kiss. The churches of Christ salute you. Well, you might say, well, you didn't kiss me when I came in. Well, guess what? They're in Italy. You want to be kissed, go to Italy. It was a cultural thing. I shook your hand if you were willing to shake. And if you weren't, we could fist bump or whatever is socially acceptable these days. We're going to be friendly. We're going to be brotherly. Salute one another with a holy kiss. The churches of Christ salute you. Now, here's the question. I don't want to be looked at like the people in the Church of Christ. Remember what the Jews said that didn't know? Everywhere they're talked against. Well, not everywhere. There are people that do appreciate what we try to do. Well, look here. This is what actually is being asked. Hebrews 13:11. For the bodies of those beasts whose blood is brought into the sanctuary by the high priest for sin are burned without the camp. Well, we don't do that anymore. Jesus came. Wherefore Jesus also, that he might sanctify the people with his own blood, suffered without the gate. That's the worst reproach you can have, is being put outside the gate of Jerusalem. Let us go forth, therefore, unto him without the camp, bearing his reproach. You know what you do when you go outside the camp? You don't care anymore what anybody says. Can you live like that? Man, I can live like that. Folk putting a bunch of pressure on me. I don't care what they say. Why? I'm going home eventually. Just about got to go in 2010. Do y'all know I was talking that way? Lori had to talk me out of it. I was like, Lori, I've got stage 3 cancer. This is all kinds of chemo and radiation. How do you know this is not my chance to get out of here? Well, that'd be pretty selfish, wouldn't it, Clark? So, went to the cancer center, but you know what? I'm 60 now, fixing to be in a couple days. I'm ready to get out of here. And you know what? I'm telling you, the reproach isn't that bad. It's the work. When you're working with Jesus, what did we start the lesson with? Running. You did run. I don't want to run in vain. Somebody's hindering you. What you got to do? You got to keep running. Come outside and run with us for the prize. What's the prize? Well, I tell you what the prize is if you don't. This is Jehoiakim. He shall be buried with the burial of an ass, drawn and cast forth beyond the gates of Jerusalem. Them pearly gates, you don't get in them if you're this kind of person. Jeremiah 36:23, here's what Jehoiakim did. And it came to pass when Jehudi had read 3 or 4 leaves, he cut it with his penknife and cast it into the fire that was on the hearth until all the roll was consumed in the fire that was burned on the hearth. Well, guess what? He got the burial of an ass outside the gate, not coming in the pearly gates. Y'all, this is serious business. We could have a lot more peace and unity. We could be turning sectarianism into Christianity. We could be turning heretics into Christians, Catholics into Christians, Christian church, denomination into Christians. I'm trying not to leave anybody out. So, if you're basically wondering what you have to do, this is just that simple. Remember the part that we said was left out? That folks try to leave out of the translations? Here it is back in King James. He said unto them, go and preach the gospel. Go unto them. Go ye into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature. He that believeth and is baptized shall be saved, but he that believeth not shall be damned. Tonight, it's that simple. If you want to be a member of the Church of Christ, you believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, you will be willing to be baptized for the right reason and according to the right doctrine. And guess what? Here it is, be baptized in the name of Jesus Christ for the remission of your sins. Repent and be baptized. That means you can't go back to that sect anymore. And look what happened. Verse 41. Then they that gladly received his word were baptized, and the same day were added unto them about 3,000 souls. The Lord will add you to the church of Christ. There it is in present tense. And the Lord added to the church daily such as should be saved. Anything else is an addition. And tonight we got our same song, Oh, Why Not Tonight? Oh, why not tonight the last night? It's not the last night. The invitation is open no matter what time it is. Now, I say this, I'm not staying after the tent. These fellows are going to take it down. It'll be the first time since I had cancer that happened, that I wasn't with it. But we're growing a new crowd, new crop. Bless you folks that came in from all these different places, going to help us. I'm saying that to say my phone is always on. And if you leave a message, especially tonight, that you're rolling and tumbling and you want to do what's right and you don't want to be a sectarian heretic in front of God. Denomination sounded better, didn't it? Let me have my word back. Nope. We're doing things in Bible ways and calling things by Bible names. It's heretic, it is sectarian, or Christian. That's all there is. If you're here tonight and you're wearing the wrong name, get it right tonight, because tonight might be your night. On your way home, I would not want anybody to miss this chance. The water's ready. We got clothes to fit everybody over to our building, which is 7 minutes around the loop here. If you're here tonight and you want to obey the gospel without any additions or subtractions, tonight's your night. Oh, why not tonight? Come on, Joey.
Okay, we thank you again for coming out. We want to take this moment to ask if there are any visitors. If you had a Bible question you'd like to ask, this is the time to do it. I've been told I don't give enough time when I ask that. But I figure if anybody had a question, your hand would be shooting up. But we want to make sure. Okay, Mr. Chris, you have a Bible question? Tomorrow or tonight? What did he say, Matt?
He said tomorrow.
Okay. Well, we can certainly discuss baptism, yes. That's a yes or no question. He asked, could he be baptized tomorrow? We can talk about that for sure. Well, according to the Bible, if you wanted to go to heaven, it'd have to be tonight. And that's Mark 16:16. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. We're very thrilled. We've got folk who came out to visit North Carolina, of course, all the other states. And I think we mentioned, I don't know, when he talks about Maryland, you're talking about the McNairs, but Stephen came over from Maryland. He's been out with us. We appreciate Stephen coming also. That is right, Maryland. Glad that Stephen came by, young man, nice young man. Hugh's family coming out to be with us. We really appreciate y'all coming. It's a treat when everybody comes out. So thank you very much for being here. To all our workers, this has been a very smooth tent meeting. My perspective, been very smooth, and I appreciate all the people working behind the scenes to make it be that way. We'll dismiss. Now we're going to ask our brother Ben if he'd come up and lead us in a closing prayer, and then we'll be dismissed. Thank you.